Katie's second live stream is going to be her addressing things to make sure that both her and George are on the same page. Since that's what people all of a sudden care about, it might feel like a revision, but I wanted to make sure that we have everything important accounted for. For the first 5 minutes, she apologizes for not being able to control her feelings throughout the video, and she thanks people who were there to see her, because even if they're not her fans or support her, she is grateful that they are interested in listening to her instead of just watching the snippets that people post online. And she does not have a script. Since it is a live stream, she feels that it would be weird to have a script. She talks about how she's not sorry for comment about her assault. She doesn't care about how people feel about that. She talks about how people are accusing her of lying because people did not understand what she meant by that he had his hands in her shirt and touched her. She would not be crying and accusing somebody of assaulting her if it was just a tickle. She has an issue with all the information that's been spread, and I think that's fair to be honest. She talks about how she was reading a story and she did not know that it was her story until her name was mentioned. She says something that I agree with, which is that he did not notice her discomfort that night because he was busy feeling something else, and if he cared about the mood that he was setting or cared about her in general, he would have made sure that she felt comfortable and liked what he was doing to her. But no, he did not do anything like that by asking or making sure that she actually felt comfortable instead of assuming, because he felt that would ruin the mood and remove the opportunity of feeling pleasure from her or touching her. And that's just my opinion. This is not a fact, and none of them mentioned that. It's just what I have interpreted from what both of them said happened at that moment. She talks about how she misspoke her words and meant to say that she was freshly out of high school. However, due to the heightened emotions and her statements being live and not in a controlled setting, she had no way to take back what she said, but she thought other people would understand that she meant she was freshly out of high school and was only 18 years old. She talks about how she's shocked that people are accusing her of SA because George was drunk too, and she wanted to clarify what she said in her tweet. When she said that George initiated most of the touches, people assumed that she reciprocated some touches. She's making it clear that that did not happen, and the touches she was talking about was her touching her friend and leaning on her friend and being physically affectionate like people normally do when they're drunk, and no type of sexual touches was from her to George. She talks about how she would never win because when she first came out about the allegations, she was accused of being power hungry and a clout chaser, but when she went private, she was accused of hiding and not wanting to be held accountable for speaking on her experience with George. She also mentions that she did not go to the police because she believes that the judicial system is also part of the reason why people like George and Dream are allegedly allowed to get away with the things that they're accused of. She did not believe that the police would be able to help her, and that's why she did not go. And she talks about how a lot of women understand why she does not trust our judicial system. One thing I want people to understand is that things like this take ages. It takes forever for you to even ever hear back from somebody, and then when you do hear back from somebody, they could say something like, well, we dropped the case because it's not important. It has to be picked up by your prosecutor, by your DA of your district, and if the DA of your district is, for example, focused on violent crimes, this case will be dropped. If they're focused on drug crimes, this case will be dropped. So and this is just my limited education on how things like this work, and George is from the UK, so what will the cops do for her? Be serious. She was so confused on how people are quick to tell her how she felt or what she should have felt instead, and how people relied on Dream and George to tell them how they think Katie felt, and how that's just ridiculous because Katie has come out not only on live but on Twitter to tell them how she felt, and how they're still not willing to believe her and are willing to ignore that and look at other people to tell Katie how she felt. And in my opinion, that's also crazy. She also talks about how it is irrelevant that George keeps trying to account for people who were there, and how she did not know everyone because some of the people that were there were George and Dream's friends and people that they met at the con, and she's no longer in contact with them, so she did not see the need to bring them up. She talks about the cuddling and how she does not feel like it was an invitation for anything because she felt that it was what people did when they were drunk, and it was more than two of them on the couch because there was another girl sitting next to her and she was doing the same thing with that girl, and that's not an invitation to anything from her or to her, and from a perspective that she was not the one that initiated the touches and she did not reciprocate anything. Caiti talks about how she's grateful that this started a conversation because so many people, including her fans and other content creators, have come out about their experience, not just with people in the industry but their experiences in general, and how she's grateful that she created a safe space for people to talk about things like this that happen to them and not feel pressured to keep it off the internet. She talks about how George wanted them to go from Instagram to Snapchat, and she talked about how she did not feel comfortable with that because she understands how messages and videos or images disappear from Snapchat, and how she felt like he was trying to move things to a point that she did not feel comfortable because there really wouldn't be any proof of it. Caiti, for the first time, acknowledges the difference between her and George when it comes to their sexual experiences. She talks about how this was the first time she's ever been touched, and how if she had the choice, she would have never done it in front of other people, and how she thinks that he did it in front of other people to embarrass her. And I'm so confused on how he feels comfortable doing it in front of other people, knowing his influence and knowing that no one would speak up because no one wants to assume something horrible like this is happening. And that's why, in my opinion, no one intervened at the moment. But people did get a bad vibe from what was going on between George and Caiti, and that's why once the interaction was over, someone did reach out to Caiti just in case, because at the moment they never wanted to assume that something horrible could be going on. Caiti talks about how at first she did not feel comfortable speaking up because the industry is small and they're all connected in different ways. She talks about how the four of them, George, Dream, and the other guy that was there with them, all had the same manager, and how the manager is the only reason why she was able to attend the con, and how she was able to meet her fans and had a booth, and how she was scared of losing those few things by speaking up because George and Dream would joke about how their manager was willing to do anything for them. So she did not feel comfortable speaking up and did not feel like it would make much of a difference. At first, she talks about how she wanted to protect him and did not want to embarrass him in front of those people because she did not also want to get embarrassed by causing a scene. Before I start with George's second video, I am just pissed at how much George is allowed to get away with, because the whole point of his first video is him attempting at tearing Caiti's story apart, and he kept on highlighting the importance of accounting for everything that happened at the 4-day VidCon, and at the first after party and the second after party, and then weeks after the party. However, this second video is him correcting some of the lies on his part, and honestly just contradicting himself. And if Caiti's lying because she did not feel the importance of talking about what happened the whole night, what is it then when George is saying one thing in the first video and then saying something completely different in his second video? George talks about the elevator and the misconception of him assuming that she was walking him to the elevator because she was trying to be nice, and how he is now trying to acknowledge the fact that there were more rooms past the elevator, and it makes more sense that Caiti was actually walking to her room rather than entertaining his BS by trying to walk him to the elevator because she was trying to be nice, whatever that means. And I just love how all of a sudden he has no memories of things that he is being accused of. Like, we cleared up the fact that there were more rooms past the elevator. Can we address why he kept on trying to get her to enter the elevator by pretending that it was not working and insisting that if she came in it would be fixed, or trying to prove that it was not working if she came in? And how when she insisted that she was not going in, you made a sad face. That is manipulative in my opinion. When Caiti said that he was fooling her out, she was not lying, because if we think about it, her leaving when Dream was tired made more sense than George leaving when Dream was tired, because they are best friends and there is no reason for George to leave just because Dream is tired. So it makes sense that Caiti thinking that George was trying to follow her out, made sense. I bring this up again because when Caiti made the assumption, he tried to make her out to be a liar, but when he also made the assumption that she followed him out because she was trying to be nice and not because she was going to her room, no one is calling him out for being a liar, even though when it comes to being accountable for the things that he did or he's been accused of, he does not remember. But when it's time to make Caiti a liar, he remembers 100% of everything that happened. And sure, people care about what happened in those 4 days and a couple of weeks after, but can he at least try to address the things he's been accused of? Not just picking apart Caiti's story, trying to make her out to be a liar, and then including unnecessary details to confuse people. Like, we still don't know why he tries to get her to enter the elevator, and him having no intentions makes zero sense, because we're not stupid. You clearly had some type of intention, innocent or not, by trying to get her to enter the elevator after she's made it clear multiple times that she did not want to go with you. I don't really know how George expects anyone to take him seriously as someone who donates to charities that help out victims of abuse when he has his friend on the phone laughing about what happened to Caiti or what Caiti allegedly accused him of, and after all of that, he never really addresses what Caiti accused him of. His friend just says that everyone had a good time, but what I'm trying to figure out is why he thinks it's up to him and his friends to tell Caiti if Caiti had a good time or not. Caiti is saying that she did not have a good time, so it's not up to you to call somebody else to ask them if Caiti had a good time when Caiti is telling you that she did not have a good time. Caiti has even more of a reason to invalidate George, because all these screenshots that George has were actually sent to him by Dream. He is just grasping at anything to make Caiti out to be a liar, and Dreams allegedly is helping him make his video. They are trying to protect each other, and they don't really care about what happens as long as they clean up their images, because them are all affiliated with each other. 10 minutes into his second video, George is still struggling to acknowledge the imbalance in both their age and the imbalance in the fact that she was less experienced than him, which is something you have to discuss before you could ask for consent. For example, some people don't like to have intimacy with people who are virgins because they know that they might not be the necessary good or safe or fair experience for that person. So George not caring about her age or caring to know how much experience she has shows that he doesn't really care about consent, in my opinion, because Caiti at that point already mentioned that she was a virgin, which is something George still denies that he did not know, because for some reason he has a good memory when it comes to discrediting Caiti, but he does not have a good memory when it comes to being held accountable for the things he's being accused of. George is still failing to acknowledge the power imbalance he had over Caiti, and he claims that he did not recognize that power imbalance because Caiti was also at VidCon, and he felt like everyone who was invited to VidCon was just as influential as him, which I think is BS, because it makes sense, for example, that George is friends with Dream because Dream is on the same level as George, or maybe even more popular, but they're all in the same circle, right? However, he claims that he did not know who Caiti was when he first met her. So how could he claim that you guys were all just as influential if you did not know who Caiti was? For example, just because you are at the Grammys with Taylor Swift does not mean that you are just as influential as Taylor Swift. 11 minutes in,